Hello, lovely people. It is Thursday. I think it's the 11th. 1 week since we wrapped up the campaign for the Metadomain Cleric, the Prayer's Handbook. I think everything is cooking here. I do not want any timer chats. I want to see if this works. Hopefully we'll get a little thing on there. Yeah, well, that's still linked to the thing. There's currently no pre-order page set up. That is something that's been taking up some of my time. Normally after a Kickstarter is wrapped up, there are people who are coming in the door or banging on the door after we've closed up shop. So the campaign ran for 29 days. I think 29 days, 28 days. And it's almost always like on the day 29, people are like, Kickstarter campaign? What Kickstarter campaign? And so in the past, I have set one up through BackerKit. And BackerKit will be handling, fingers crossed, BackerKit will be handling the surveys that will go out to everybody. Currently, Kickstarter, the time after, oh heavens, I gotta send that to voicemail. Voicemail. I think I did that right. Where was we? So Kickstarter is currently collecting. Hey, Telemont, nice to see you. So Kickstarter, if you don't know, so Kickstarter is currently collecting the pledges, and I think that's like so far 9 have got question marks over them. They may not be, cards could have, between the time a person pledges and the time Kickstarter tries to collect the money, things can change, like a credit card could be declined for any number of reasons, like it could expire, or insufficient funds or something like that. Who knows what it could be. But they make a couple of attempts to run the card, and then that's why it usually takes 2 weeks for them to then transfer the funds, minus their cut, minus the credit card company's fees cuts, to the people who are running the campaign. So we're currently in that. I was just told my keyboard connection was lost. There we go. We're back again. What a weird minute there. Once Kickstarter sends that information to me, then I'll know which cards were actually who was actually charged and actually paid for all the stuff, and then that'll tell me who gets stuff. Because you could pledge for all the digital goods, and then your card gets declined, or it's a bogus account or something like that. I think the bigger my campaigns get, the more likely I am to run across fraud, but so far that hasn't been a problem. I want to be wary of it, but it's never going to be a big problem for me in my little my tiny little studio shop. So far so good. Everything's going great. I am working on building the pre-order page on my own website. So Kickstarter won't be handling pre-orders. People will go to my own web store, and they'll basically be allowed to order things out of stock. There's a pre-order function that you can pay for, a pre-order system. I'm not going to do that again. Cheapskate cartoonist, cheapskate independent creator. I'm being nickeled and dimed from every direction anyway. So I'm trying to keep that to a minimum if I can. So that will be on my own website. If people want to pre-order the Prayer's Handbook, they'll be able to do that way. Hopefully that'll be up by tomorrow. Fingers crossed. And now my cat's screaming, so this is a What's up, buddy? Don't want him hollering all stream. Anywho, yeah, so that's it. BackerKit will be set up to so BackerKit, the way they'll be involved in this process is once Kickstarter lets me know who paid for what, and that will give me the basic contact information for everybody. That contact information will be fed into BackerKit, and BackerKit will send out surveys, so I can say, okay, where do you want your stuff sent? What physical address? What mailing address? Because some people have I think Kickstarter is mostly just interested in your billing address. This will collect your shipping address, which may be different from your billing address, and email address on your account. Maybe my cat's being silly. And your email address for delivery may be different than the one you have connected to your Patreon, or a Patreon, but your Kickstarter account. Kickstarter is mostly interested in Meow. I agree. Um, Eric, my cat has the floor 21 hours a day. This is the 3 hours I want to be able to get a word in edgewise. Um, my little guy, he's all. I'll be right back. Talk amongst yourselves. And we're back. No, he's I don't know what he's yelling at, but he's yelling at something. He'll join us at some point. I'm sure of it. Um, so anyway, Kickstarter's collecting their funds, and then I'll be able to send it to Patreon. Patreon, gosh darn it, to BackerKit, and BackerKit will send out all the surveys to everybody. So if there was something in the campaign that you missed, you'll be able to add it to your order, like the T-shirts. The only thing I really tell everyone that if you want to get one of the T-shirts, get it through the BackerKit, because I'm not printing extras. I've got bins of unsold T-shirts. 4 months ago, every Patreon supporter, I said, hey, if you want a free T-shirt, just fill out a form. And I mailed out T-shirts to all my Patreon supporters who wanted one. They just take up space. They're awesome. I like T-shirts, but they just take up too much space. Cat punishment off. No, it's more like a cat concern. I want to make sure that I think they actually do care about each other, the two cats. And so if like one's might be in trouble or something like that, sometimes one will meow if the other one is doing something wrong, or tattling on one another. So I just want to make sure they're not like stuck on top of a bookcase or something like that, or found themselves in a place where they don't want to be. But they'll be on screen if they choose. Their rider is amazing. They got all these little treats that they need to get if they want any screen time. But good to see you, Moose. Good to see you, Eric. The fun in the D&D world this week has been with Wizards of the Coast. A couple of different ones. They keep stepping on rakes in Sideshow Bob fashion. The latest one was an ad for Magic the Gathering, where they were showing off some cards, some quite lovely card artwork, and they showed the cards in a very uncanny valley environment. It was like this kind of steampunk library workshop thing, which did not look. It was neither a 3D model nor an illustration. It was in this quasi photorealistic area, but falling apart at the seams. And people were zooming in on all the seams and showing how, what the heck is this? But clearly, photo retouched. Like a person took it and went in and corrected numbers. Like there's a gauge, like a pressure gauge, and they went in and fixed some of the numbers. Because I don't think AI has ever gotten numbers right. I saw an AI ad today on Facebook selling more books, and it was god awful. I should call it up. Let me call it up. I saved it because it's such a strikingly bad image. Okay, we'll put the minis up. Oh yes, I'm thrilled to be sharing this with you. Now, I don't have the rights to this image, but neither does the person who was using it as an ad, since it's AI. I mean, I take it back. Everyone has the rights to use it, since you can't copyright it. Where are we? Here we go. That was an ad on Facebook today. Savor it. I don't know what that symbol is, the combination P and L. I think that was Prince. I think for like 3 weeks in 1998, that was his name. Exploding book sales. And oh yes, oh man, This is a delight. Ah. Oh yes, those hands. Those sweet, sweet hands and that face. Those faces. This is hell. Like Hieronymus Bosch was like, this is what he was going for. A modern marvel for every author. This is fantastic. And it's pretty eye-catching. You know, again, it creates striking images, but if you'll turn, you'll look, but the more you look, the worse it gets. I want those things to be caphasing booksoids. So today's episode will be about caphasing booksoids. I'll go back to the spinning minis, but I thought you would you would unenjoy that as much as I did. So today we're going to start off the day just something light with some magic items that I'm going to be illustrating. But that on this Discord server, so I could show my tell them I'll up the DG. We know all about it in the Magic Circle, right? And the thing was, to me it's kind of funny because I think they were throwing a third party under their bus. They were saying that was marketing people who added that, not the editorial people. And there's always been a big division in news businesses, but I don't know, in the corporate world, there's not really that. It was barely a bright line division in news. They held the line for as long as they could, but it was falling apart by the late 90s. But in corporate world, for them to say, "Oh, that was marketing," it's like marketing is calling all the shots now. When the creative director has an MBA, you know, it's not really, you know, it's super fuzzy. Cave, how are you? So WotC had this wonderful ad. Promo image, and they were so proud of the cards, but everyone was caught up with the distracting background behind it, and started, like, some people annotated it like it was Pepe Sylvia, calling out every minor thing about it, everything that was wrong about it. I mean, you could just look at the windows behind it and you go, what the hell? That's not a what? And but just like that other horror I just showed you, it's like initially striking, and then the more you look, the worse it gets. But WotC immediately said, listen, there was no AI used. Our marketing people or third-party marketing service, the people who create the social media graphics, is it in-house? Is it out external? I mean, I don't know what the rules are. There's no rules. It's just ethics. They want to make money using a system that doesn't cost them anything. So if a third party charged them, hey, we'll produce this beautiful little promo social media graphic, WotC, please pay us money. And if WotC got ripped off by somebody using AI, but the main thing, the first question I asked when I saw the thing circulating around social media was, who's the artist? If it was made by a person, who? And that's how Wizards solved the first problem. Somebody thought there was I forget which video blogger called attention to a Dungeons and Dragons 5.5, 2024 edition, whatever they're going to call it. Let's call it 5.5. A 5.5 illustration where they said it was AI, and a lot of people looked at it and went, that could be AI. But then the artist stepped up and said, no, it's not. And they showed their roughs and all the stuff. And like the inconsistencies that people are saying that's inconsistent. It's like, well, that's just awkward. That's the way people draw. You know, that's the stuff that AI imitates. It's usually the fingers that you know, really, you know, no artist would screw up that badly. To me, the piece didn't immediately say AI, but somebody called them out on it. But an artist stepped up and said, this is them. So, I mean, if someone signs the work and owns it, that's that almost becomes a prerequisite now. And I kind of, my buddy Dan, who we know from Zero Level Media and the Mazes and Muses podcast, he was saying, well, what are the rules now? If I license a piece of artwork and the artist doesn't request credit, doesn't actively request credit, or you've purchased it. Do you have to give them credit? I think thanks to AI, you definitely should. I think you should always, because it's a nice thing to do. But, I'm also like, I licensed photographs from Adobe Stock. And I think I credited Adobe Stock. Like, this is an Adobe Stock image, but I didn't go and dig into it to say who was the photographer and who was the model, But I think the more of a, what would you call it? Credit should always be given, what Cave says. I forget what the phrase is when it's a antique of some kind, a pedigree. If you have any kind of history of what that item is, you should include it as best you can, because again, the argument could be made, this person uploaded their picture to Drive-Thru RPG. Drive-Thru RPG is a place where you can purchase online and print and digital RPG books. They also have a section where they sell and license illustrations for use in your own TTRPG book. So if you're an artist and you want to upload your work there, people can license it for a few bucks. Now, that license might be, or let's say the Creative Commons non-attribution license does not require attribution. I think thanks to AI, I think you should probably include it just to cover your own butt. Got to go to the post office, drop off an order, and then it's grocery store. I'll be back. Cave, good to see you. Moose says, a friend of mine worked at a games company that outsourced a lot of their artwork. They said their review process and standards were lower for outsourcing studios than individuals, where they expected to have art directors managing the artists so they don't have to. Also led to them letting things slip through that they wouldn't have for an individual artist. So I can believe that they didn't even review the art very hard. Absolutely, Moose. I think that's right. Like, there was Studio Udon? Was that a big studio that did a lot of work for in the comic book world? It would just be signed Udon. Or I think Comicraft for the longest time, who did comic lettering, the credit would just be Comicraft. It didn't say Richard Starkings. It didn't say who the particular letterer was. That's me initially striking, but then the worse it gets. Tell them I'm referring to the WotC book that was accused of AI. It was a piece of artwork for a giant-based 5e book, one that's been released since then with the artworks. Oh no, that was a different one I was talking about. That one actually was AI. The one with the bluish figures standing in like a trio of figures. There was a 6e book of what looked like a dwarven warrior. With a shield in the foreground. I want to say it was Indestructo Boy, their video. Oh yeah, there was another one. Tell them I feel your pain every time. The easiest way to see an error in your work or your typing is to upload it to social media or upload it to chat. It'll immediately, you can't see it till you hit the send button. Always give credit. Hell, even in my code, if I use a code block from somewhere, I cite where I got it from and if I made changes. Oh yeah, it was another one. And Indestructible Boy, I think he basically said that he wasn't going to review stuff in that way anymore. That I think he was saying that I think in his video, I hope I'm really getting the names right, that he felt like he was too much on that outrage feedback loop. Like, it's so easy to if WotC does something even remotely suspicious, it's easy for everyone to go, look, they're at it again, without examining it. And that's kind of an easy way for them, WotC, oh, look, we didn't use AI artwork. So, we didn't use it. And look, here's the artist. So, and there's a lot of people that apologize. And then when, that was on the Dungeons and Dragons side. And now when Magic the Gathering and the marketing division used that was kind of bad. But I will upload that image, that AI nightmare, that their Facebook ad to Discord. So this is a previous Magic item I sculpted. It was an Ampule of Healing, which I uploaded the stats for this week for the first time. Originally, I thought that these plots devices. There's a merchant in a game I've been running named Odious Plots, and he sells magic items of his own creation and ones he's gotten from other sources. And this is one of his creations, a genuine plots device. And he and this is basically an aerosol version of a potion of healing, where someone breaks it. Either you shatter it like a glow stick, or you throw it on the ground, and a plume of healing mist fills. I said a 15-foot diameter. Just that I would say just adjacent to the figure, but that gets wonky in VTTs. Right? If you said you were next to the figure, you would get it. If you theater of the mind, it's easy to explain. But if it's a VTT, suddenly, if I made a 5-foot diameter or a 5-foot radius, it's weird. So it's just easier to draw a bit of geometry on the map and say everything within that gets a little healing burst. And the idea is it's less powerful than a healing potion, and the rarity of each thing is bumped up. Like there are common healing. I want to say there are common healing potions. There are no common ampules of healing. So they start at uncommon and go up to legendary. And there was also the other magic item. The second one that was posted was called the Sword of Swallowing, where the idea is it's a +1 sword, and every day at around dinner time you may feel the compulsion to taste the sword. And if you do, you realize immediately it's a Sword of Swallowing. And if you take bites out of it and chew the sword up, in over the course of a minute, you have to avoid a little bit of slashing damage. Be a little dexterous as not to cut yourself. All low DCs, all low DCs. You'd gain the parry ability for a week, where you can basically up your armor class by 5 as a reaction for a full week. It's a very silly item. I like the combination of silly items, but also effective items, because the idea of having a +1 sword, but wanting to sacrifice it for that parry ability before a big fight, before a big duel, would be worth it. Absolutely worth it. Eric, I refuse to let salty talk destroy something as wholesome as the fine circus act of sword swallowing. And next thing, fire breathing will be off the table, and I refuse to give ground. But I appreciate it. Tell me, I didn't take it negatively. And then the third magic item that was posted yesterday to Patreon, and I'm going to try to post one a day if I can, because it seems pretty straightforward to do so. I've got a ton of these piling up. The next one is the MacGuffin's Comfy Pillow, which gives you, with some limitations, because of some people are not affected by magical sleep, like the Fae and Warforged. I can't mention Warforged specifically because that's not in the SRD. But if you're not affected by that sort of thing, you gain the benefits of a long rest in half the time. Oh, it's good to see you, Telemon. Thanks for being here. Drive safe, and you'll be able to share that image with her. I don't know where to post that ridiculous thing. I'll share that on Discord later. But yeah, be safe. And I'll be here streaming till at least 7. Because we got some stuff to do. Magic items to create. So I kept this here mostly just so I could have... I like the lighting. So I'm going to create these new items. Now what I've done for creating a lot of these magic items is I sculpt them in Nomad Sculpt. And then I export them and paint over them in Procreate. Because I want them to be... Sometimes I can just fake a... sometimes I don't need reference for the illustration, but it helps to have it. It helps me to keep light sources consistent. It helps me just play around. But I can never... I don't imagine any reason to ever want to 3D print these things. So I'm going to add to the scene a bunch of pieces I've created in... Where are you? You are in the downloads folder. These are pieces I sculpted. Sculpted. It's the wrong word. I created them in Illustrator. Let's say I create them in Illustrator. I copy the file. I paste that into Photoshop, and in Photoshop there's a 3D tool, and so you can take a two-dimensional object and make it 3D. And this is going to solve me this solves a lot of problems with geometric objects. I could fight Nomad. Nomad is not great with simple geometry with right angles and mechanical bits. You can fake it. You can fight You can fight its system and make those things. And a lot of people have sculpted ships, and I've sculpted some mechanical objects like the prosthetic leg on that rogue. Sculpted, like real simple geometry. You can do a pretty good job of, and you can, work through it. In this case, I really wanted things to be specific. Like I want to make a 3D model of Sir Quimp's sword, Maledicta. And in order to do that, I'm going to have to start in Illustrator. There's just no way to get the proportions right. So I'm going to, first of all, move the origin of these things. Put those in the center of the universe and will help line things up. So this is going to be the Protector's Bulwark. This is a magic shield that actually I created for a game that I was DMing, that my character was the healer in the group. This is a rotating D&D game I play where our long-running dungeon master has decided, like, I need some time off, or we have a player who can't make it. And so we all dust off our low-level characters and we play this continuing little hodgepodge game. It gives me a chance to dungeon master from time to time and play a cleric. In this case, it's a Warforged Order domain cleric. And at one point, we're dealing with odious plots and a story that I'm dungeon mastering, and my character's just kind of along for the ride and providing heals. We still usually run our own characters along with the group to act as support. And so this shield grants is a +1 magic shield, and then when it gets activated, the armor class goes up by 1, and you can share your armor class with any adjacent friendly figure. Any adjacent friendly figure can use your armor class instead of their own. So my Warforged cleric is very well armored. With the shield active, his armor class was like a 21. Anyone next to the cleric, as long as the ability was active and the duration is random, it gives it an extra bonus to their armor class, as long as they want to, stand beside their colleague. Hey, Alex, how are you? So, this is definitely going to be one of the magic items, and so, unfortunately, I think I made these things a little too. I like the beveling that Photoshop could bring to this, but unfortunately, I think I made the things far too wide. I used kind of the default depth, and that created too much of a... Where the heck? Let me turn those off. Oh my goodness, these things are gigantic. I'm going to scale these things down a bit. Okay. All right, so that piece is the appropriate thickness. Let's fix these other ones. Those are the vertical slats. I'm going to worry about those next. I'm more worried about the frame around the thing. Oh, great! Just learned how to develop film. Oh, fantastic! Oh man, that happens sometimes. I should have, well, we'll skip all those steps. Now that we know what we're doing, that's one of the things I like about screwing up, is that it makes when you redo it, it's faster. All the things you've learned the first time around. All right, so I'm going to open those again. I'll move them all to where they're supposed to go. Move origin, move origin. Now we know they're oversized, so I can select them all. Scale them down greatly. we go. I'm going to save again. Well, I'm going to save. I didn't save the first time. This time I'm going to see if I can remesh this thing to maybe make it less complicated, or I don't know, maybe make it more complicated? So the other thing, the other story that was going around role-playing game circles this last week was an author was saying that the golden age of role-playing games is... I'm not going to use that same... Actually, I don't care about the back of this thing. I'm going to cut off the back. You can only see it from the front anyway. They were saying that the golden age of TTRPGs is over. And for the most part, the community disagreed. A lot of people were saying, no, it's not, or by what metric, or we just got, you know, we just started adding a lot more voices to the field and you're saying this is over. I think, to be fair to the person making the case, they were saying that RPGs had a moment when 5e was so dominant, and everybody, all the big, I don't think he says this, but all the major public figures, such as they are inside the role-playing game space, were all playing 5e, whether it's Critical Role or Matt Colville or Goodman Games or Cobalt Press. They're all playing or in creating material for 5th edition, and that the idea that everyone's going to create their own TTRPG or their own spin on 5e, that's going to create a fracturing of the community, and that we all won't have this central place where all the exciting stuff is happening. So I think you could make the case. Teos Abadia on Alpha Stream has a kind of a almost point by point rebuke of that argument, but I kind of see what that fellow was going for with their argument, that you know, there's something nice whenever there's something excellent about everybody working on a single project. The problem was that single project was kind of, we didn't realize it was at the mercy of this corporation attempting to revoke an irrevocable contract. And what it means, and that not in the end, Hasbro and WotC gave us everything we wanted. They put 5.5 in the Creative Commons, so now everyone can keep making D&D stuff, and you keep publishing your own D&D stuff. But what it raised was the specter that we might not be able to do that for 6th edition, 7th edition, you know, whatever this 5.5 thing is. And what does that mean for people in their livelihoods? You know, all the folks who are making stuff for 5th edition were honestly terrified. I had just gotten there. It was a party I just arrived at, and so I certainly don't have as much skin in the game as other people like Sly Flourish and I don't know, Matt Colville. I mean, they were producing their Arcadia zine as a subscription on their platform, and I think that you know, they would have been in real trouble if they're making that content and suddenly couldn't anymore. So this is a shield. I did a little sketch of it, but didn't really import that because it wasn't that complicated. I like the idea of a shield that kind of mimics the shape of a tower, that mimics the shape of a rook, and so it has kind of that crenellation along the top. Is that the word, crenellation? So it hints at that, and also hints at being a tower. It hints at three-dimensionality, like a curve to it, but it doesn't have that. So I'm going to add tons of rivets and we'll hopefully make this thing look a bit better. Currently, these spotlights that are on it are very bright. It's creating a skull shape, not intended. I'll move this light out and find that other light. I want just a hint of blue light hitting the edge of everything. Increase the intensity of it so we can see it. Alright, let's change the surface of this stuff. I had that original ampule. I'm going to keep that here. And so there has been a jump in the number of people who are supporting me on Patreon, which is nice. I think folks are interested in the magic items, so I'm going to keep doing that. Initially, the plots devices, these magic items that I'm sculpting and then painting, I thought they might be their own Kickstarter and their own book. But I don't really know who's interested in that sort of thing. I kind of stumbled into the success of Intoximancy and Death Dealing and now Metadomain. And I feel like my efforts are better spent continuing to do the kind of things, because I just enjoy that so much. I like coming up with those things. Coming up with cool magic items is neat. I get to put those in the books. But almost always the magic items that are in the books are, unless it's filling a very small space, like I included in Intoximancy, the tiny scythe of Pascal Possum. I included that in there mostly because I needed to fill a small amount of space. I had that magic item in one of the comics I'd written. I thought, oh, that's easy to do. It just gives a person a death ward every day. Super simple. Not a very inspired magic item. Any magic item that simply grants you the power of a spell is not super interesting to me. It's because there's very little difference between that and casting the spell on the person. So. I get it. There's one magic item I have that's like gives the character a version of haste, but it can't be the exact same effect as haste because you're not really adding anything new. You're just giving people another way to do something that can already be done, and that's kind of boring. All right, let's add some magical, some metallic bits here. And so part of it was, can I make that a darker metallic color? I'm going to save this. I'm going to remesh this part here. That's just going to make it a little bit stronger. And then I'm going to hit it with this smooth brush. Because it'll just soften the edges a little bit and it might catch a little more light in places. Like you see the top edge of the metal there? How it's catching a little more light? Just softening those edges does that. Do the same thing with this bit up here. Remesh. And if I don't remesh, the smooth tool just will melt the thing, and I don't want that effect. I want it to be. I don't want it to fall apart. Put all this effort in building it. We don't want to. Sweet. A little bit of weirdness there. I don't know if I can fix that. But again, this is just reference for painting. Any blemishes I can paint out. Oh, that's my cat again. I'm going to flatten that a little bit. And I might recess it. Actually, let's do this. I'm going to recess it into the darker metal we have back there. Or we'll go the other way around. We'll take that darker bit of metal and we'll bring it forward. Okay, now my cat's being silly. I have to, I will be right back. What's up, buddy? Oh, you want my chair? Go ahead. You can take it. Go ahead. No? What do you want? What do you want? Nothing? I don't have sandwiches here. I know you want a sandwich. No sandwiches for you. All right. Okay, where are we? All right, let's add some rivets. What are you doing, you weird cat? Weird cat. All right, for rivets, I could create circles. I prefer to do this. I'm going to add a cylinder. And we will enlarge the thing. And we'll adjust the radius of the top so it kind of bevels a little bit. And we'll validate. My cat is weird, but happy. Before we want to increase the division X, that will smooth out the sides of it. I don't know if we need to, but so I'll be at my first convention of the year coming up here. It's in the Central Florida Comic-Con. It's in about a week and a half. I'm looking forward to it. Just smoothing out the edges again to catch a little more light. I'm going to extend the length of it just so it makes it easier to embed. I think it's a little too large. But the last campaign ended a week ago today for the meta domain cleric. It went really, really well. I'm very happy with how it all turned out. Slats and background. I just wanted to turn those off so it'll be easier to select these things. I'm going to select this and move it up a bit. Didn't mean to select everything. Interesting. No, I thought that was separated. Actually, let's do this. We'll select those and those. Oh man, I didn't want to select all that. Yeah, the group that these things are in is giving me problems. So I gotta delete the group object. Because if you select the group object, the object that's containing all the other objects. Marcus, nice to see you. If you select the group that everything else is in, it'll move everything else. It'll move all the things you don't want to move. So I don't know how that object to the... I think that object to the... Some things weren't moving the way they're supposed to. Alright, separate. We'll do that again. Oh, it's moving the lights as well. What a pain in the butt. For this, I'm going to add the rivets along the top. I'm going to join those together. Save. So I'm currently sculpting a shield. Send it back to 0. So I start the rotation and then I finish it in that little panel, just so I get my math right. join those together. Save again. I'm going to flip those. I'll clone them. Oh, where are we? I'm going to decimate them. Those rivets are like half a megabyte in size. I don't think that's necessary. We'll flip it. We did. Center the pivot point. For some reason the thing is not in the center. Every time I import stuff from like Illustrator or some other program, everything's off. Like everything's not in the center of the universe the way it's supposed to be. Alright, so all those new cylinders are floating in space. That's fine. We can fix that. And then once I have this model sculpted, I will bring it into Procreate. I'll sculpt it, light it, make sure I'm happy with it. I'll bring it into Procreate, and then I'll paint over the whole thing. As I did with that ampule there at the bottom, which I'll turn off for the moment. I feel like this could be cooler. I think it needs something in the center of it. I got a disc or something in the center. We'll see what that does. Save. Add a cylinder. It is so weird that this thing is not centered in the universe. I'm going to try to fix that right now. I'm going to break that out. Those are all rivets. I thought it was going to crash there for a moment. All right, so when I join all these things together, they will, if I break them apart, they're just going to scatter everywhere. Fortunately, it's not that big a deal. I think there's only a few pieces. There's the background, the backing of the shield, the frame, the 5 vertical slats, and then everything else is rivets. So I'm going to save. I think I can't clean it up yet. Join. Moving the origin to the center. That move origin button puts basically everything right back in the middle of the universe, which is just what I want. That way when I'm flipping things and mirroring things, that they will go right where I need them to go. guess this could be kind of a... Yeah, let's try this. It's border around sci-fi, but... What we'll do is I'm going to clone that cylinder, the smaller of the two. I'm going to rotate it -90. Should have it face back. And then I'm going to turn it invisible and select the other one, and I'm going to knock it out of it if I can do that. Why did that have no effect? Because they don't actually overlap one another? And that'll do it. There we go. I kind of create a recess inside it. I think it'd be better than that. Alright, so we'll turn that invisible again, and we'll do it one more time. So that writer was making the case that the golden age of TTRPGs is over. And I can kind of see that from the point of view of crowdfunding, maybe. If everyone's playing 5th edition books, if everyone's playing 5th edition, and then that becomes a no-brainer if you're going to try to create, let's say you want to be a TTRPG creator. It's sort of like writing software. What's the most, a lot of people, a lot of programs were created for Windows because Mac was so niche and remains so niche. So why spend all that development time for a platform that isn't going to have that many customers? So if you have a choice between creating something for 5e or creating something for Morkborg, and you want to make money, odds are 5e, unless there's a glut of 5th edition content, and it seems like in the last couple of years there's been a lot. I mean, even noobs like myself are jumping into 5e game creation. Okay, if that worked for that, well, I don't want to do that with the slats because I think it would just create a weird shape. But I don't hate that. Go one more step, Wally Wood style, I think, would be to clone that, make it smaller, and then bring that forward. And so, so I can see why the writer would think that golden age might be over. I kind of get that. I don't think they were writing it simply for the outrage bait. I think they really felt like their opportunity to create something which would affect everybody in the game space might be going away. I think that if they had said it like that, of course, it wouldn't have gotten as many clicks. They're an accomplished writer, so I got to presume they knew what they were doing. But I do get the sense that if you want to create something that everybody in the gaming world might notice, and I think I was able to do that a little bit, a very tiny bit with Intoximancy. Like it was able to. Although I also think I didn't have the only reason it got any nominations, I think it just didn't have much competition. I think that's got to be it. It can't be because, for a shortage of. There was no shortage of good material that year. Sweet. Where I think this is kind of a cool visual. I do think a couple of. I want to try reducing this cylinder in the center here and see if how that looks. No, I think it needs it to hold it all together. But those extra rivets kind of... I think I turned them invisible, but they became... This is something that's said often in the D&D game I play. You invisibilize, you uninvisibilize, and you re-invisibilize. I think those became re-visibled. I'm gonna... I really don't know if I want to adjust those any further. I feel like at this point anything else is really just mucking around with it. Now what I want to do is I want to move some of these lights to do something more interesting. I think it might be casting. I'm not sure what that scuffing is coming from. Maybe reflection? Ah, no, that it thinks it's casting a shadow. Again, this is a fairly primitive 3D modeling program. I love it because it's my speed, but I certainly get why people prefer more powerful programs like Blender or... Yeah, I like that. I want that hint of light on the edge of all those things. I don't want it to look like van artwork, but glint is not catching that disc in the center for some reason. Certain angles it is, but others it's not. I could paint the glint in, but I'd rather it actually be there. Let's move this thing in. I want to move this in just so it creates, if only just to create the highlight on the disc. And that lighting just does not want to show from that angle. Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you. Good to see you. Alright, we got the blue reflected light. We got... I feel it's a pretty good magic item. It's probably a little too chunky on the sides. Let's see if I can bring it down a little bit. It's going to squish everything, including the rivets, so I have to break it apart. So before I do that, while it's all a single piece, I'm going to decimate the thing. That's going to reduce the amount of space it takes up and the amount of detail which defines everything on here. I just don't think we need it all. Alright, so if this works the way I'm hoping, it's going to... Let me rename it all to shield. Because when you group everything together and then you separate it, all the separate pieces take on the name of whatever it was the original group was. So shield becomes shield 1, shield 2, shield 3, and so on. So this is the shield frame. I'm going to rename the 6 extra pieces there are and get them out of here. Because everything remaining should be a rivet. And then I turn them off one at a time. I just got lucky. And so the other magic item I want to work on today... Oh, this gives me a chance to get rid of those rivets, I would hope. Turn off those cylinders. Let's get rid of these guys in the middle here. Oh, and also grab the lights. I don't want to get rid of them. One more time from the top. So I can join all those back together, and these are the rivets. Save. Taking the smooth tool, I'm just going to run this along them, just to hopefully catch more what we talked about. That kind of softness to the edges will help them catch a little more light. Now I should be able to adjust these things. I didn't think about that. The shield, I need to break these rivets into the ones that are on the outside, on the perimeter, and the ones that are inside. So let's do that. I'm going to separate this again. Look at it from the front, use the selection tool, and try to avoid clipping any lights. Because then, if I do, then they'll be selected. Back on again. Now these rivets don't have to stand out quite so far, and these ones can be centered roughly. Maybe a little more of that. All right, now I'm going to save this view, so that if no matter where we move, I'm able to go back to that view at any point. I'm going to turn on perspective and see if that makes it look any better. I'm not so sure. Makes it look wider. Yeah, I don't hate it. Alright, save and sip some coffee. So again, this is going to be the prototype Protector's Bulwark. The idea that it's a +1 shield, and when activated, it can extend its protection to people nearby. I think I'm going to darken the center cavity here of this thing. I'm going to do that by doing that, and then I'll create a new cylinder. Maybe I can do it this way. Clone that cylinder. Enlarge it, darken it. Rotate it -90. That way it's facing the other direction. Slide it back and scale it down. That way, that other cylinder's there, and it's just going to be this opaque thing behind the center of it. So now the center node of it, I can have crackling with energy. You know, as if when the shield is activated, let's say there's some sort of powerful glow, like a nimbus of energy or something extending from it. I feel like that we're losing some definition between the front of the disc here and on the left side. So I think I want to soften that. So to do that, the first thing we have to do is we have to validate all these shapes. Because until you hit the validate button, it remains geometry and not a piece of clay that you can mold and sculpt. And so now that that's been done, I'm going to remesh it. This way, it keeps its, it helps hold its strength. And then when I soften it, you should see, let's go back to our preferred angle. You should see on the far side of that disc a little more light, a little more blue light catching that edge. Oh boy, that's way too high. Wrong, and the wrong tool. So that's the before. And look, if you look at the top of that center disc, that's after. You see a lot more light catching that edge. We're going to remesh this one as well. And we're going to remesh that one. I think that might be a better angle. So I'm going to update our view and delete the first one. I feel like one of these lights I want to bring around. Actually, we'll turn it off and on to see which one it is. There's the show button at the top there. I really don't feel like it's doing a lot. It's really brightening up that edge, but I don't think that's being all that helpful. I'm going to bring it out a bit, extend it, and then brighten it up. I'd like to see those rivets on the side get a little more light on them. Maybe too bright. trim off the back of it. I'm going to save first because the... Oh. Validate. I'm going to save first because when we used the trim tool before, it kind of choked a little bit. So, rectangle tool, cut off the back of that. Get back to our viewpoint. All right, let's assume for a second that the lighting is it's kind of blandish lighting. I'm wondering if I put strong lighting as like a very powerful blue light at the center of it, that'll create a whole new effect. That means we can get rid of one of these lights. Poof, I need them all. Yeah, I need them all. Alright, we'll have to do that in the painting stage then. And you only have 4 lights in the environment. But man, I really want to... Alright, we'll try this. I'm going to change the color to blue. We'll move it into position, and if I don't like it, we're going to hit the undo button a lot. So what we're really doing is just shining a very strong invisible light directly at that center bit. By invisible, I mean the source of it is invisible, not the effect itself, right? I don't hate that. It does mess up the light sources. I think I like that better. I think it's a little more subtle. I know, subtle in an RPG, that makes no sense. Other thing I want to try to do is brighten that light on the side there. Bring more blue light in everywhere. Maybe push it back a little bit so it's not hitting the front facing of everything. More side lighting on everything. One of these lights I have to have some drop shadow. Nope, not you. Nope, I'm gonna have to fake it in the painting stage. Fair enough. All right. So we'll save that one. This is the shield. I think that's good enough for me to start my painting. So we'll add that as a group, and we'll call it the shield. And then we're going to import the pieces for the other magic item, which I don't even remember what it was at this point. Oh, it's another sword. Sweet, 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 sweet. All right, so we'll turn that off, and we'll go... It's going to make me want to move the lighting. I have to create a new version. All right, we'll save this as rename it Plots Device Shield. And then we'll save a version, save as new, sword. I definitely want to move the lights around because the sword's not going to have this blue glow in the center of it. Okay, and we can hide. We can delete that guy. So what we do is we go add to scene, import a new file, we go to downloads. Again, this is something I created in Illustrator and then brought into Photoshop. Just because this program is really bad. Nomad Sculpt it just can't do extrusions, and certainly not beveled extrusions, and that's kind of what I wanted for the sword. So it puts these in the environment, it sticks them off who knows where. So I'm going to move their origin to the center of the space. It's also going to make them very large. I've brought in STL files that were smaller, and their quality is pretty bad. So the process for creating these is you start in Illustrator, you create your geometry, you copy that in Illustrator, open up a RGB file in Photoshop, paste the vector image in as a smart object, and then in the 3D menu you say basically turn this layer 3D. Then you at that point you can adjust the depth, which I didn't in this case, they're too thick. You can adjust the depth and add a bevel. Again, stuff you can't do in Nomad Sculpt. And then you can choose print 3D, and the only real option is exporting as an STL file. Drag that into your iPad, and here's where it is. It's clumsy steps, but it does allow me to import geometry. I tried bringing STL files directly into my iPad, no luck. I do use a 3D program called Shaper 3D when I have to do something specifically geometric that has a specific measurement to it. Like if I need something to be the size of a magnet, like 5 millimeters by 2 millimeters, for instance, then that's something I'm going to bring in. I'll create that in Shaper 3D. For instance, these books. The Prayer's Handbook was the latest Kickstarter, and this is a Prayer's Handbook. It is a box that it's made up of basically 5 3D printable pieces. And these were all sculpted. The base of them was sculpted in Shaper 3D, and each one of those pieces was brought into Nomad Sculpt and embellished. But stuff like the geometry of that kind of D20, D12, D10 star field kind of star map, I did all of that in Illustrator and then brought those pieces in at various levels, and basically each elevation was brought in separately. When it came time to do stuff like the paper on the side of the book, that can only really be done in Nomad Sculpt. I couldn't really create a kind of in Shaper 3D. I was able to create rectangles, stacked rectangles, stacked flattened cubes, which looked like paper, and then cut out the cavity. But then there's holes for magnets. I don't know if you can see them there. The light's a bit bright, but there are magnet holes, and also matching on the lid, so that they can slap down. And once you put those in and glue them in, it'll lock the cover down. So things like that, really specific measurements, I'll use Shaper 3D, and then bring that skeleton into Nomad Sculpt and then add all the flavor. I'm going to select these 2 pieces, and just like we saw before, they need to be scaled down to fit all the other items in our universe here. And that blue light can go away. We don't need you right now. Oh, not that one. Oh, right. These things are not metal. I'm going to go back to matte cap. Kind of the default sculpting material in this program. It'll all look like kind of beige chocolate. I'm going to hide the shield. And so what I was bringing in here was the hilt and the blade. Now again, this program doesn't do bevels very well, so I'm going to take this basic blade shape, I'm going to remesh it nice and high, keeping sharp edges. I'm going to save, so I don't have to repeat this process if it crashes. Save. Trim tool. You can see I didn't bevel the back of the thing. I was only concerned about the front of the sword. Actually, I can even trim down further. One of the things I've noticed with I started 3D printing material, 3D printing things myself now. Let me move this to the center again. I just want to make sure we're dead center. For some reason, we weren't. Center the pivot point, and we'll do this one more time. Because it's centering the pivot point, not the object, right? So it has to know where is the center of this thing. It could be a really weirdly shaped thing. Like you want the center of your shoulder to be this. You want the center of from shoulder to bicep. You want the center to be kind of the shoulder, so it rotates around that point. Similarly, you don't know where the center of an object is, so resetting that and then moving it to where it needs to go is kind of key. So if you ever find yourself centering something, it's not going where it's going, make sure that the center of the object is the center of the object. Or at least make sure it agrees with you where the center of the object is. So we'll take that, I'm going to rotate it 180. Excuse me, I'm sorry. I'm going to do something different here. Let's go back. We're going to take a step back. Before I trim that shape down, I was basically going to set it up so that the blade was going to have a sharp edge. The problem with that is that fails miserably every time you want to do anything in the 3D program. If you want to soften the edge or scale it or print it, that point where those things come together, where they come together, there's just not enough description there to hold the thing together. So it sometimes works out to, it's better to have just a little bit of a blunt edge to a sharp object. So I'm going to do that. So go back to our gizmo, reset our pivot point, move it to the center, reset our pivot point again, move it, and bake. And what bake does is it takes all the transmutation, all the modifications you've made to it. I think actually it's translation, not transmutation. Sorry, I'm definitely playing too much D&D. It takes the adjustments that you've made to the object and it records them. So at some point, if you ever go and say reset those things, all set them back to 0, your object will be a different size, it'll be different rotation, all those things. When you hit bake, it basically says all the rotations and all the adjustments, scaling, skewing, rotating. It will, though that's the new normal, and establishes that as the baseline. So I'm going to rotate this 180 around which center point I do not know. And then, okay, so that's our blade. Now this is the Sword of Shattering. The idea is it is a +1 sword, and every time you hit with it, it has a chance. It will do an additional 1d4 of thunder damage. Isn't a lot, but when you crit with it, it shatters. Basically, these kind of fractures along its surface appear, and it becomes a +2 weapon. And then you crit with it again, it fractures once more to a +3 weapon. And if you crit again, at that point it shatters and the sword falls apart. And there are 3 gems in it. And basically, one of the things, whenever I have any of these items that are consumable or expire, I try to answer what it is that happens to the pieces once it shatters. What does it turn into? And so the 3 gems, I think there were 3 rubies worth 500 gold apiece. So you might lose your magic item, but you make 1,500 gold in the process. Hopefully that's cold comfort. And the thunder damage is optional because it's very loud. I like the idea you hit somebody and it's just this loud sound every time you're cutting with this blade. Part of me thought maybe this should be a hammer, but I really like the idea of the fractures appearing along the edge of the sword. Not just the edge, but along the whole length of the blade. I'm going to just remesh those together. Move that back to the center, move that to the center. Center its pivot point, move it again. So even importing it, it still has kind of a wobble to the blade. You just see that kind of the undulation. Not great, but what you can do. It beats if I attempted to sculpt it using the available tools in this program. And since it's all just going to be a painting anyway, it's all good. Alright, so we will remesh this. But jumping back to that guy's thought about the end of the Golden Age, I really feel like that's just not true. I feel like we have more people than ever are playing. Will some people leave the game? Yeah. You know, everything ends at some point. I mean, at some point, Kickstarter will no longer be a thing. Twitter is barely a thing now. They don't even want to call it that. So no matter how powerful the thing is or how prevalent the thing is, its days are numbered the moment it's born. So I don't know. I don't feel like the rumors of its death might be premature. But there's also you know, if the person was trying to create an uproar, they managed to do it. But I think there's so many cool people who are making stuff now. Not just a cult of personality thing, but I think there's people who are just like, their voices haven't been heard in this space before, and they're doing interesting things. The amount of the Emmy nominations last year, which I never really paid attention to. I didn't know what the Emmy Awards were before I even submitted my book to it. I'm so new to the professional side of Dungeons and Dragons and tabletop role-playing games. I really didn't know about anything. I was basically, my friend Dan said, "Oh, you should submit to the Emmys." I'm like, "Okay, what is that?" And I submit, and I get nominated. So thank you, Dan. I mean, my inclination is to always submit to awards no matter what field you're in, because my thinking has always been that, well, whoever's judging these awards is going to be a person who's known in the industry, and I want those people to read my stuff. I want everyone to read my stuff, so at least if I submit it, I know I'll get 6 more readers, and that was always my thinking with my comics. So we're going to add a what we want is we'll use this. We'll use no, this thing's very mechanical looking. I was going to create a lathe, but I don't think that's a rudimentary lathe, as Guy Fleegman might say, but I think I'm going to use a cylinder. Taper it slightly. Increase the topology? Yeah, my Division X. And now we'll create the pommel, if I have my terms right. We'll do another cylinder. And we will very much bring that one down. We'll do the exact same thing. Increase the Division X, validate it, scale it down. Now I'm going to remesh it one more time, keeping sharp edges, and I'm going to soften a little bit. Again, we just want to catch more light on the edges of these things. I'm going to clone that cylinder and scale it up here. So for folks who don't know, I write and draw the webcomic The Middle Age, which you can read at middleagecomic.com. Among the characters in the story is a talking sword named Maledicta. One of the things I want to do is, now that I'm pretty good at the Sword of Sorting. Shane, how are you? It's good to see you. This is the Sword of Shattering. When you crit with this sword, it begins to shatter. It's a +1 sword. It does a little bit of thunder damage when you hit. Very loud weapon. An effect that you can choose not to use if you're in a more subtle situation. I didn't know if I should make it so that it's always loud. I didn't want to be like they're sneaking around. Maybe it should always be loud. Yeah, it's always loud. If you use that sword, it makes a boom, and it can be heard within, I think I wrote 60 feet for loudly, and then it sounds like distant thunder elsewhere, beyond that, beyond 60 feet. But I was really thinking you should be able to turn it off. But no. So, +1 sword, and when you crit with it, it shatters and becomes a +2 weapon, and basically the kind of cracks go along the edge of the thing, increasing how potent it is. And then you crit again with it, it's a +3 weapon, and if you crit beyond that, the sword shatters, it falls apart, and the 3 rubies, the 3 very amazing gems that are in the sword, are yours to keep. You know, it's basically a little parting gift, but a very potent weapon that won't last forever. Is the rant over? Oh, it's just beginning, Cave. I talked a little bit about the AI brouhaha, the latest AI brouhaha from WotC. And then talked about that's, I don't know if I'm sure you saw, Cave, the golden age of TTRPGs is over. Which, frankly, I knew the moment I joined the party it was over. Okay. So this needs a gem. It needs a gem. We can make a gem. The easy way to do is like a D20 gem. Those are just kind of baked into the software. But no, we'll sculpt a real gem. We can do that. So we start with a box. And my thinking was that it's not over. It's changing, and I can understand why somebody might be disappointed that it's changing. No, it isn't. I feel like that was really what the entire community came back and said. It's just now outside the media's ability to steer the narrative, and so they want it to go away so they can get back on top of the narrative. There you go. Yeah, I was saying that I think it's mostly that it's changing in a way that there's nothing. I'm going to start with a cylinder. I'm not going to start with a cube. I haven't done this before. Let's go to shot. 45 degrees. We'll change that right there. That this person, the author of the long text thread, was basically saying that this idea that for this brief period we were all speaking, for 10 years we were speaking 5th edition, and with the advent of Critical Role and Stranger Things and the pandemic and all these different things, all these things which contributed to us all focusing our energies in one basic area, and Matt Colville's doing 5e stuff and everyone's doing 5e stuff. 5e's run its course and people are bored. There's a whole bunch of people who have been doing it and they're bored with it. I'm not one of those people, but my dungeon master is. There's a lot of people who are sick of WotC shenanigans and outright evil. Shenanigans is too sweet a word. And malarkey. How about that? Take that, WotC. And then everyone with the uncertain future of what the next edition of Dungeons and Dragons might be, and with the Hasbro pulling the rug out, potentially pulling the rug out from under all these publishing companies, no matter how small, decided like let's create our own game. We've been playing this game long enough. We've been playing games long enough. So the idea that we're not all doing 5e stuff. It seems some people think that if you just put 5e on your Kickstarter, you'll do fine. I've seen lots of 5e Kickstarters fail. But I think the notion would be that in a year's time, if 5e is less popular and there's no OGL for 5.5, what does that mean for creators? And where do they find a home? And are they now having to produce stuff for MCD, MSRPG, and for Tales of the Valiant, and for everything else in the world? If anything, it's a second golden... that's where I find myself. Cave, totally agree. And it's very weird coming from the world of comic books, where the golden age was sort of defined by the creators who were with us. When Lou Fine and Will Eisner and Jack Kirby and the golden age guys are gone. It was sort of defined by these publishing booms and busts. To claim that was the golden age is kind of weird, because I think a lot of grognards would have said that the golden age ended in like 1984. Right, and the number of games has always been increasing, and they could be... Ryan Dancy, the OGL author, co-author, co-creator, primary author, he said the term that they use was heartbreakers for a lot of these D&D type games that show up, and they're very much like D&D, but they have a few things different about them, and that those things are they don't work because they're not different enough, and because you really need to have a critical mass of 4 people to play a game consistently over long. I'm sure that people have been running a Call of Cthulhu game for forever. No, that's not true. They've been running maybe one. There's been a continuous setting, even if all the characters keep going mad, for a very long time. But the idea that you'd have any group of people, if you just want to start a game up, you can either all learn a new system or all play the one you know. And I can say, as someone who didn't play D&D for 20 years, I missed 2nd, 3rd, and 4th edition, but I played the hell out of 1st and Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, and played the hell out of Marvel and Traveller and Star Frontiers and Gamma World and the James Bond game and Fastest Star Trek. As someone who played all those games, when I came back to 5e, I found it easy to slide into it. I don't know what the intervening years were like, but I know people are sick of 5e. One commenter on one of my Facebook posts was, "Oh, I'd play this game if it weren't dog shit 5e." What do you really think? Okay, so we have... Oh, did I do that wrong? I did that wrong. I will learn from my mistakes. Delete. I will reset your pivot point. Thank you, Shane. I know you probably don't want credit for that for the rest of your life, but as someone who told me, hey, there's a pivot button. Clone. Now this thing we can rotate along the green axis. One would hope. We'll bake it first. We'll rotate along it. I just explained what the baking was a minute ago. 45 degrees? That would be an 8-sided object. We don't want 8 sides. 60 degrees. And then we'll clone the original one again. We'll rotate that 120. Whoa, that turned out bad. We have to bake it, and then we'll do 120. I forgot about the baking. So, Cave, when can we expect your wonderful project? Cave says, I can't even count the number of TTRPGs that came out in the late 90s. Right? It seems to me they just keep increasing. If the argument is that I do get it. Like, if Critical Role and the whole idea that you're going to be playing D&D, or you want to keep playing 5th edition, but Critical Role isn't, and Matt Colville isn't, I think you might feel like people are leaving the party. We're splitting the party, as it were. And there are disadvantages to that. And you could feel like you're alone. When the last person to leave 5e, turn off the lights. That's all true. All right, let's see if this works. Save. I'll turn that invisible. I'll select the cylinder. I'll remesh it. Sharp edges. And that's our 6-sided gem. Granting the illusion that I know what I'm doing. Right now the plan is March, but honestly I'm overwhelmed. There's a ton to do, and I don't think I can do it all myself. But we have to talk offline, Cave. I'm gearing up my my next Kickstarter, which will be for Zine Quest. And there is definitely room for cross promotion and sending people your way. How we doing out there? Well, we got people. Hello, people. For folks who don't know who I am, my name is Steve Conley. I'm writer and artist of The Middle Age, which you can read at middleagecomic.com. Episode 298 appeared last week. 299 should appear this week. I'm cranking on it. It's dragons. They take longer to draw. Okay, I'm going to modify the pivot point. And then, thank you, Shane. Donka Shane. And then move that gem down. And the reason why this has to have a gem is that I said in the, well, all the magic items I've been creating lately, all these appear over on my Patreon at patreon.com/Steve Conley. Links in the doobly-doo. When this magic item fails, when it finally collapses and shatters for the last time, it the 3 gems that are on it, on the pommel and on either side of the hilt, they crack loose, and you've got 1,500 gold worth of gems. 3 rubies worth 500 gold apiece. Oh, your mileage may vary. I don't know if the shops in your town will give you 500 gold for it. That's really kind of up to you to haggle. I should indicate an estimated price. The trouble about writing rules for D&D is like you just, everything has a follow-up question. The magic item today is MacGuffin's Comfy Pillow, where if you you can take a long rest in half the time. Okay, we're gonna remesh that thing to strengthen it a little bit. Do what we said before about smoothing it out. Just see how it catches that light so much better. Ooh, never heard that one in 40 years? What'd I say? Oh, let's actually name this gem while I have a thought. But people are signing up for the Patreon, which is awesome. I'm excited that I had no home for these magic items. I didn't really know what to do with them. I thought they could be their own Kickstarter, but there's so many Kickstarters for magic items. I didn't want to do one more of those things. That doesn't seem to... Unless they could have some sort of theme. I think if you had a Kickstarter that's all... If the whole book is just swords, if the whole book is just shields, or it's all magic items related to one. I don't know. Someone had a Kickstarter where it's a periodic table of elementals, and every page or double page spread is a different elemental based on an element from the periodic table. I'm not sure how useful that is as a dungeon master, but that doesn't seem like a player resource. That seems like a dungeon master, exclusively a dungeon master resource. But it has a hook. You say to anyone, I think, the periodic table of elementals, and you go, that's pretty awesome. So it needs that. I feel like that's what Intoximancy had. That it was this kind of, I say that like that snakes on a plane aspect where no one's asking what's it about. So what's Snakes on a Plane about? Like the description is just, do you need to ask? Oh, Doc. Me and Ferris, we're the only two who say that. How we doing? Look at you lovely people out there in the world. I'm gonna drink some coffee. Why's my phone blowing up? That's one of the things about when a Kickstarter campaign ends, you just don't get any kind of you're used to getting notifications. But I didn't give a post project campaign recap. That was awesome. In the end, there were 477 backers, which is 6 more than any campaign I've ever run. The first edition of the Middle Age had 471 backers. Intoximancy had 450. I'm really surprised, because I also thought Metadomain was a really weird idea that I didn't know many people would be interested in. I honestly did not think. I thought it would have half the interest of Intoximancy. I thought as a role player, this is work. You know what I mean? Believe me, the abilities that a Metadomain cleric have are awesome. At the very least, they're useful, and I think they're fun for a support character. Mostly clerics are largely support characters. They're fun for the character to have. You can play you might be playing the team's Murdoch, if you have it for an A-team reference, another name Shane hasn't heard in 40 years. You could be the weird person in the group, the quirky guy. So I don't really know how, but 477 people decided to give it a try, which I'm amazed by. Maybe it has 5 gems. I think this thing just got more gems. I think. Maybe. We'll see. Bake. Rotate 90 degrees. So the abilities of the Metadomain Cleric, which I didn't get into too much detail about while the campaign. No, I think it's only have 3 gems. I just don't think that the gem won't fit nicely on the edge there. I guess I could reshape the hilt, but nah, it's not working. All right, let's color this thing. Now, part of the idea is the blade is going to have these kind of fractures all the way up the blade. So I think it's going to look very shiny, but I'm going to carve in some slices, some hard cuts into the blade, so it hopefully catches some light. Hey, Steve Sketches, how are you? Thanks so much. I appreciate it. David, how the heck are you? Honor among Steves. I appreciate it. Thanks for being here. There are more TTRPGs being made and released ever, and many of them are extremely dope. Right? Right? It seems like the more games there are, more people are going to play. There are some people just, I don't want to play Dungeons and Dragons. They have a preconceived notion about what it is. They want to try something different. Also, kids today and the music that the kids have. You know what I'm saying? All right, so let's add some light to this. We have some lights already in the environment. Oh, that's bright. I'm going to sample some colors from this other object I got going here. So I've been making magic items for my Patreon supporters, and so far, certainly they're getting more comments. And I post my comic there, and they're like, "Okay, thanks for the latest edition," or they get a bunch of likes, but it's not the same as posting a. What was the one that was yesterday? Sword of Swallowing. I think my readers have their heads in the gutter. Can a person eat a sword without everyone getting all weird? I am partly to blame. Okay, let's ungroup that. But it's a sword that when you eat it, you gain the power. If you have to make a series of dexterity ability checks to avoid cutting yourself. But after a minute, you then have the parry ability for a week. That's an amazing ability. Well worth the subsequent pooping damage. But it's just a place for me to put the magic items that don't fit into any other books I'm doing, any other projects I'm doing. This thing needs a grip. I'm going to hide the shield. We don't need that anymore. But I hope everyone's having a beautiful day. I've been 3D printing lately. I got I've been sculpting for 2 years now and 3D printing. So far so good. This is oversized. Oh, the light's so bright. Wear your shades, everybody. Another reference for Shane. Every over 40 reference today. I've got my first comic convention this year coming up in a couple of weeks, and I want to have these at the table so people can see them from a distance so that they can say, hey, D&D stuff. I've got the Metadomain Cleric, but I won't have the minis in time, I don't think. This one I was running out of filament. I ran out of filament 3 times. And so I had beige filament, then gray filament, then blue filament. But once I put primer on it, I can't wait to start going to cons. I'm excited. And it's fairly local to me. It's the Central Florida Comic-Con. They put me up. They take care of me. It's a good show. There aren't a lot of other comic guests of note, which is weird. Usually, as someone who sits proudly atop of the C list of cartoonists, I usually ride the coattails of much bigger, better known cartoonists. So it's challenged. I mean, so I don't think there's not a big comics draw there, but there's a ton of voice actors like Tom Kenny, SpongeBob. He's Mr. Show. He's one of the Mr. Show guys to me. But Robbie Damon will be there. He's one of the Critical Role participants. He's the Darien player. So Shane says, first day of class for Tuesday, Thursday classes. One was okay, the other had a lot of students. Oof. Are you going to have the wrench of dodging? See, Cave, that's the thing about these dumb magic items. They don't fit in any other projects I'm working on. So I like the idea that I now have an outlet for them. I thought about having a standalone Kickstarter of just, here's magic items, but there's too many of those. Okay, I want to put some grip on these. How do I want to do that? I know what I'll do. Oh, I tapered the freaking handle, didn't I? It's not a straight cylinder. No one's going to care. No, this is just reference for a drawing anyway. But because of the 3D modeling and the 3D printing, I'm going to have a Lego formatted Maledicta. So anyone who's got a Lego character will be able to print out their own Maledicta for it. Gosh, this thing could be prettier. I need to add a lot of decoration to this. Well, we'll see. We'll see once the lightning and effects are in. Selection mask, rectangle tool. And we'll just eyeball it. Oh, it was very blurry, so I'm going to remesh it much higher. I know this is a magic item. I don't have to make this make sense. It's the main reason to do fantasy comics and fantasy RPG stuff is that magic. Just hand wave it away. So I'm going to save one more time before we do the next step. Estimate the thickness. No smoothness whatsoever. It's my middle name. Too much. We'll bring it down to 0.04. A little too much yet. Sweet. All right. We'll name that grips. I don't know. And I will use the smooth tool on this. First of all, I'm going to remesh it again to give it some integrity, keeping sharp edges. The students I teach have had historically bad teachers. Huh. Right, these lights need to be adjusted a lot. I think I'm going to duplicate that blue light and move it down so we get more on the handle as well. Maybe I can move these up. We'll have a couple. That's fine. That's fine. All right, so now I'll take the blade here and we'll name it blade. And a lot of these basic shapes, for folks who missed the beginning part of this, I didn't create them inside Nomad Sculpt. Anything that's super geometric, the new shtick is create the geometry in Illustrator. Take that into Photoshop, use Photoshop's 3D ability, and that way you can add things like bevels and extrusions. Again, something that Nomad Sculpt doesn't have is extrusions. An example of something I was able to build with this I showed before. Then the STL will be available to Patreon folks as well. But I'm going to mail one of these out to a random Patreon supporter as well. So this is a 3D printed book. Forgive I've got some nails painted here. So that's like, I went and got a manicure. My lady was getting a manicure, and she's like, "You need." I'm like, I bite my nails, so I want to get that done. I go in there and get it done, and like, so, and she's like, "Well, you get the color for free." I'm like, "I'm a cheapskate. Yeah, I'll try it. Sure." Anywho, this 3D printed. It's printed in 5 pieces. The lid, the spine and back, and the paper. The paper's been toned a little bit with some with a wash, and then divots for magnets. And so it turned out really well. This will hold. This will so it works as a dice box. Originally, this was going to be twice the size and would hold the zines I've made. But most people don't have a, as Cave was pointing out in one of our conversations, most people don't have a printer large enough to print that. So having it as a dice box really works. And it's got little prayers handbooks, text on the side. This particular printer I have has got decent, it can do 2-color printing, even if it's a bit wasteful with plastic. But it works out right. See, my lady? Is that not formal enough? Should it be milady? But I printed a few of them. Some with more modest coloration and different. Like this one uses that same gold plastic as the paper color. So I'm having a lot of fun putting these together. I'm going to have them at that Central Florida Comic Convention. Here's a cover I just printed using 2 tones of gray. So we'll see. Maybe people will dig them. I've referred to a lady in the past. I tend not to talk about my life at all. Shane, I find my personal life to be so. That's just, I find like talking about the work and what I'm creating is way more interesting. Yeah. For a guy who sticks his head in the corner of a Twitch stream, the idea that you would be private at all is kind of absurd. But yeah. Also, I don't think. I think if I told you about her, you'd be like, "Oh, he's making her up. She can't be that great. She can't be as great as he says." No, she is. She's pretty great. But yeah, but the distinct lack of misery that you see in my face is all because of her. All right, let's duplicate this blade. I want to put cracks down the length of this thing, but I think the way I'm going to do that is with the selection mask tool. But the first thing I'm going to have to do is undo what I just did. I'm going to back. I'm going to remesh it nice and big, really get the detail there. Let's delete the original. And I'm going to use the lasso tool and selection mask tool. Oh, I don't want symmetry on. Yeah, I thought about that being a Twitch stream add-on where I would actually say a personal detail. But it's very funny. I've got a friend who we talk about. Dan, he jokes about it all the time on the Mazes and Muses conversation we have every Saturday. How he's all about, he wants to be quote unquote D&D famous, and I'm like, I don't. I want to make my thing. I want people to know my work. I just don't. I just want people to be able to support me as long as I need support in this dumb capitalist system. I want a Star Trek future where presumably everyone has a replicator. My Canadian James, how are you? Cool principal. I appreciate it. Thanks, James. You are 100% within your rights to do so. You should feel no social pressure for me. From me, yeah, gotcha. Shane says, I spend the majority of my day talking with people, and given the topic of sociology's personal nature, I end up sharing my stuff multiple times a day. I was programmed to be rather open with these. Meet me at a convention. I'm an open book. I'll answer any question people have about me, but I'm just not inclined to volunteer it. It just doesn't. There's something about. Yeah, but I absolutely understand that my circumstances are not the same as everyone else's, and I absolutely respect them. Oh yeah, and it's not meant, again, it's not, again, open book. Any question anyone ever has, I'm happy to answer. But, Canadian girlfriend. She's about that believable. So I think the idea would be, if I could do this, well, if I do this right, I should be able to indent this shape into the metal. Let's try it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to... Oh! Even better. Let's invert the selection. So everything that was selected is no longer selected, and everything that wasn't selected is. Now I'm going to use the gizmo tool, and I'm going to compress the object. This selection should have gone through the shape. Good, it did. So when I compress it, everything that is silver will be recessed. Presumably, everything that's, all the lighter areas should be recessed. We go further. And if I use a smooth tool in its current selection state, it won't affect the other areas. The smooth tool will have no effect on the area that is darkened, because that's basically masked off, frisketed, if you will, for another term Shane hasn't heard in 40 years. When I was teaching a college course in Photoshop, I was trying to explain what channels were, and I was trying to use an example of what's an alpha channel. What's a channel? I'm like, oh, it's like a frisket. It's like a film negative. It's like all these phrases, people, all these technologies and all these techniques people are completely unaware of. It's like a stencil was what I landed on. All right, clear. All right. Good enough. Good enough for an illustration reference. I'm going to save and drink some more coffee. How are we doing on time? 6:20. We're doing great. We're doing great. So the idea is that currently the metadomain cleric campaign ended on Thursday last week. 10/15 Thursday last week. So not quite a week ago. Kickstarter's still collecting all the money. Then it's got to go to BackerKit. Let's get frisky. So BackerKit's still collecting their money. Wait. Dang it. I'll say this correctly once. Once tonight I'll say it correctly. Kickstarter's still collecting money. Then it's going to be on to BackerKit to survey everybody, and people will be able to add things to their orders if they're not comfortable. Because Kickstarter makes it weird when you want to add things to a pledge and you've already made the pledge, then you have to go and edit your pledge. It's a thing. BackerKit makes it so much easier during the checkout process to say, hey, by the way, while you're entering in all your information, do you want to get any of this stuff? So things that weren't available when folks initially pledged, such as copies of the Middle Age Volumes 1 and 2, or the Grognard Mini, which was something we unlocked, they'll get the opportunity to add that during the checkout process. And that stuff will be handled by BackerKit. In the interim, what I'm working on is finishing the metadomain book, the Prayer's Handbook, and creating all the spells and all the stuff, and finding the holes where here's all this rules stuff. How much space is left over for artwork, things like that. So I'll be doing that for the next 2 weeks. And then before the end of the month, the plan is that everyone's going to be able to get the PDF. And the books will be at the files will be at the printer, and hopefully those will get printed and they'll be shipped out in February. And hopefully, once everything is shipped, then the next Kickstarter will launch in February for Zine Quest. And so far we're on track. So far everything's good, and I'm really excited. By Tuesday's stream here, I'll probably announce it on the Mazes and Muses podcast on Saturday morning with Dan on the Zero Level Media channel here. But I'll put it on social media and on a Patreon and Discord as well. But the URL for the next Kickstarter will be. But I'm very excited. Hopefully the placeholder page will be live so that people can sign up, start getting notifications, and start queuing up for when it goes live at the end of February. Cool. I'm pretty happy with how that turned out. I think we did that in one go. I feel like I want that hilt to taper a bit. Like I want to get thinner toward the edges. I'm going to try shaving a little bit there. I spend a lot of time attempting to remain relevant to my students' lives. I watch and listen to a lot of content that I would not normally experience and attempt to be able to talk about. That makes sense. Jimmy James, he's everywhere. He's here, he's there, he's every blanking where. Yeah, that makes sense. I feel like also sharing about other people in my of whom I orbit, not in my orbit, of whom I orbit, is kind of like, you want to get permission on a kind of a case-by-case basis for what you're sharing. I don't think anyone's tuning into this channel for my Howard Stern-like divulging of personal details. I can sabotage my relationships just fine on my own, thank you very much. I don't need Twitter's help. Alright. Let's try that. Let's try mirroring's on, symmetry's on, don't break. Unexpected result. That was a straight line. How did that have a problem? Ooh, that was interesting. We're remeshing. That'll fix most problems. It did, and it mirrored it in multiple directions. Interesting. Not expected. Cool, cool, cool. Try that one more time. Yeah, I don't know why it's mirroring in multiple dimensions. Fair enough. Ours is not to wonder why. We want to make sure it's all metallic again. So we will rotate that back. If the gizmo is still centered as it is, lovely. 0, put it back where it was. Then we will... Ooh, that's a very rough edge there. That's right. We can live with that. I'm going to, with mirroring turned off, symmetry turned off, I'm going to use the trim tool. And then I will mirror it with the world left to right. So basically, I cut off the part that was accidentally trimmed, and we'll do that to it. And then I will remesh it. Turn symmetry back on and soften, smooth. We'll do this to bring back, hopefully. That way it tapers it just a little bit, it's a little more character to it. I can do one more bit here. Let's do that. Let's do that. We have the original blade, which we haven't touched. before I carve those bits into it. So I'm going to clone that. Weverwolf, nice to see you. Enlarging the blade a bit. All right. And then I'm going to take that hilt. I'm going to clone that. Bring it up. Larger blade and the hilt. Turn them both invisible. I'm going to save before I break everything. And we're going to remesh them. Did that not do what I was supposed to do? Oh, I didn't move it up. I didn't nudge the hilt up. Gotta nudge the hilt. Can't believe it. Nudge it up a little bit. Turn that and the larger blade invisible. Might be too much. We'll see. Remesh. The blazes? I selected the wrong sword, apparently. I did. Let's try that again. So this creates kind of a larger little gasket around the, which center the pivot point again. Remesh it. I think that's a nice touch. A little extra around the base of the thing. So what else can I show you all here? Oh, that'll spoil the surprise. So we'll hold off on that for a little bit. All right, well, I'm going to export these things and paint them, but I don't think I have anything else to share at this moment. So either this one or the shield. No, the Sword of Shattering. That will be shared today. I'm going to see if I can adjust the opacity of this blade. See, adjusting the opacity of a gem is like, it doesn't do much. But I'm going to remesh it, and we'll try with the soften, the smooth. See how you catch that little more light there? Yeah, I'll make that look like a gem when it comes time to paint it. So I have to illustrate the sword in a way like at this angle, I think. Because I want people to see the other gem on the hilt. So I'll update that viewpoint. So I feel pretty good about that. The metal, actually, I'm going to take some of the color out of the metal. So it's a more neutral color and not so blue. It undercuts the blue light I'm putting in places. I might do that with the shield as well. Although the hilt, I'm going to darken some more. I think that's better. We just hit the view button to go back to where we were. I think a glint along the top edge, though, is kind of key. Yeah, that's better. I'm going to put like a prominent glint along that top edge, like, you know, light streaming off of it a little bit. There's a lot to do for that slice through it, but I do like it. Again, the idea is this is a Sword of Shattering. It's going to appear on my Patreon page. Eventually, they'll be available through, if you know, I know some people just don't like Patreon. They don't want to, they don't want to have one more monthly subscription. But even at the $2 level, you get the magic items and whatever else I'm sharing, usually STLs. Again, useless if you don't have a 3D printer. As I convince people not to sign up. But every day, there's something, hopefully there's going to be something new every day. Maybe not on weekends, but so far there have been 3 magic items posted. This will be posted today. The next episode of The Middle Age will be up, and then I'm going to, this month's, or the next STL, I don't want to say monthly because they're so tough to do, these 3D sculpts. But the STL file for printing your own Prayer's Handbook dice box. I've got it, the hold up there is the instructions, because underneath each box there is a recess for cutting a piece of felt. Ideally a piece of self-adhesive felt if you're like me and lazy. But you put a piece of self-adhesive felt at the bottom of this, and then you put the pages on top, and there's a slight recess in the bottom of it and in the bottom of the pages, and that creates a nice clean edge for the felt inside this, so when you roll your dice it's not plastic on plastic. This also holds the death dealing deck nicely, so I was thinking about making a death dealing cover for it. I'd have to change the sides. I need a whole new design. Where does the life go? I actively tell people not to sign up for my Patreon. You are oh, for the love of God, don't do it. All right, well, I think this is not the worst thing I've ever done. And that and the shield, I can show you. I can share that one. I'm gonna be a coward and hold on to that blade. Again, it's great to have this. Maybe I need to do a cheat sheet for that as well, for people who want to do easy geometric 3D sculpting, either for 3D printing or for importing into Nomad Sculpt. But again, it's not easy because it's Illustrator and Photoshop aren't cheap. But if you do have access to those programs, it does make life a whole lot easier. So that's the shield. The plots device, the prototype protector's bulwark. Once I paint the heck out of that thing, that center should be a glow with electricity and energy, magical radiance of some kind. And then the sword. I might also go through with this shield and pull out that blue color from the metal. I don't think I like it. I think I want it to be a. Let's do it right now. What else do I got to do? Where am I going? I'm calling this one in the wrong document because I've already moved the lightings in this one. But I think that general idea is, I like the idea of the darker and lighter colors. I think there's also going to be scarring and stuff across the top of it, like it's been hit by blasts and been hit by magic bolts and all this sort of stuff. So it's seen some stuff. Wait, did you say you didn't like the blue highlights? Who are you? No, I love the blue highlights. I don't like the blue metal. The blue metal is the thunder of the blue light. If everything's blue, then the blue light doesn't show up at all. It doesn't really stand out. I really want it to be prominent. Stealing the thunder, if you will. Indeed. Yeah, absolutely. All right, so it's coming up. It's 6:30. I thought we'd push it a little bit further today, but I don't think I have any other magic items to do on the... I'm going to crack open another one now. Let's call it there. Plus I can return all these phone calls. I think my car is ready. My car's been in the shop. So let me find my goggles, which exist. And let's find someone to raid. I haven't done that in a while. Let's do that. It's like falling off a bike, right? It's like falling off a cliff, right? You never forget. Is that how it is? Jimmy James, there he is. Where would you go if you was me? Penny Arcade says they're doing music. Anthony Wheeler's doing watercolor stuff. Loading artist. Another Steve. If I was you, then I'd be me. Fair enough. How do I not... Somehow I'm not already following Steve Najarian. All right. That's where we're going. Another Steve. That was a horrible oversight on my part. I absolutely followed him. I actually watched him. How's that not working? Is it case sensitive? It probably is. There we go. Let's go raid Steve and Jarian. All right, you lovely people. I hope you all had a mildly not unpleasant time. I will see you all on Tuesday. See y'all later. And I think Shane raids. I think his stream starts around 8 o'clock. So check out Shane too. All right, everybody. Have a nice time.